Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Cameron Abbott, the unsexiest comedian that you know and the man whose face is built for radio, and I'm coming at you, with some E3 reactions and results to the predictions that we got going on here over at Knotty Gamers. I was going to do an earlier video for EA, but unfortunately because of an issue with, how do I put this? An issue with I replaced an air filter for my air conditioner, like in the just in the house, and it made a lot of noise, like a ton of noise. So I couldn't record anything when I wanted to, and by the time it quieted down, I was getting ready for Sony's press conference a few hours later. So let's go ahead and this will be a conjoined one. So let's go ahead and start off with Ubisoft. So Ubisoft had a lot going for it. Just a quick reaction for that is it was a good conference, like much better than it was last year. Last year was so bogged down, and you know that there was a lot of stuff that they had to redo and reorganize because of the Orlando shooting. I think a lot of people are forgetting that last year we had the Orlando shooting happen like a day before E3 started, and so for the entire weekend it was there was a question of like, how do you integrate that, because there's questions of violence in video games, and do we want to still show violent video games, and there's questions of, because really the facts hadn't gotten out that it was a for all intents and purposes an Islamic terrorist who was anyway, I won't get into the political meanderings of it, but it was terrorism, and it was striking against the gay community. And last year was a heavy blow for a lot of people. And look, after the Orlando tragedy, it was a question of what do we do for it? Like, how do we approach this? And I think that there was a lot of theories that there was issues with Ubisoft. Oh, I forgot to put that on silent. Ubisoft specifically was having issues with it because of their lineup of games. I'm not sure if that was ever validated or if that was just rumors. But for whatever reason, I felt a little disjointed last year. Also, everything went on super long last year. Like, each game had its own presentation outside of just the gameplay that you would have seen. It would have made Skull and Bones look tame by comparison. So when it comes to that aspect of it, it's not too surprising. Moving on to just a few other things. So, by its nature, Ubisoft is actually in a real rough spot because it has such a wide breadth of catalog in their games. Wide breadth of games in their catalog. So you can tell it's almost 9. It's after 8 o'clock, and I'm exhausted because I've been just covering E3 all day from home, which isn't too exhausting, but I've also just been getting over being sick, and so I'm super exhausted from all that. I digress, but really the important thing to get from Ubisoft is knowing that because they have such a wide variety of genres of games, there are things that are going to miss for people personally. I will say out of their conference, it was tight, it was concise. I felt that a couple of games went on for a little bit longer than they probably should have. We didn't need an in-depth look at the very Ubisoft generic. Earlier today, actually, in the Irrational Passions reaction when they were live streaming it, there was something interesting. I kept calling it For Honor Boat Edition, and to NATO Johnson's credit, on there, I was wrong, because it's very much now an Ubisoft generic looking multiplayer setup. I'm not against that. The color scheme is the same, of course. That kind of cyan, almost greenish looking, versus the kind of like bright orange team schemes that are going on. Overall, though, I mean, it looked like there was a lot of cool looking games in there. I'm sure we'll be breaking down them much more in depth during the podcast this Friday. But moving on from that, let's go ahead and actually pull up the score. So for those of you who aren't following, the score is as follows. At the EA conference, Chandler got somewhere between a 1 to a 1.5, and myself a 2. Chandler at the Microsoft conference, we got 2 to 3, depending on how we are wanting that to shake out. apiece. At the Bethesda conference, we both got 2. And there's a note here from Past Cameron from last night who said it was a great, tight conference, but didn't end up recording it. Thank you, Past Cameron. I made mention of that in the video this morning that I put out for it. Next up was the Ubisoft Conference, where Chandler got 1. The prediction that Chandler got correct was... I'm sorry, this is actually mine. Chandler's are on my phone. I forgot to pull that up as well. But for mine, I got 2, and that was an info dump on Far Cry 5, maybe even a demo on stage. They did a demo on stage. And then... There we go. And then also South Park, The Fractured But Whole. I just said they were going to have that on stage as well. I also said that The Division, they'd have new content for that, but obviously, if your game's not called Steep, they are not showing jack for you there. That's a problem, actually, a complaint that I do have about the Ubisoft conference is that there is a shocking lack of support for older games that they said they would continue to support. Except for Steep. Steep, for some reason, I don't know the numbers for how Steep sold, but it must have been better than Division or For Honor or anything else because they didn't announce new DLC or expansions for that. You know, games that people are really passionate about to this day. But hey, you know, or Rainbow Six Siege, which has its own dedicated community that's been lauded by the industry as being very passionate and loving and very into this game. But no, like, let's not have that as part of our presentation, thanking any of these communities for keeping up and wanting to play these games and releasing new content for them. Let's go ahead and talk about Steep. Or let's talk about the Skull and Bones game, which apparently looks to be only multiplayer. If it's multiplayer only, that's atrocious. That's such a terrible idea. This game probably has been in the works since the response to Black Flag was so high, which was, gosh, I want to say that was like 3 or 4 years ago. But realistically looking at it, I'm not surprised by how it's being done, how it's being dealt with. Ubisoft, but here's the thing, Ubisoft also came hard with Far Cry 5 info. Gameplay demo that they did live on stage introduced a new character that you can hire for as a gun for hire and that has a dog. It's awesome. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on for Ubisoft, but like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be hit and miss because of the breadth of their catalog. It's huge. It's enormous, and they made decisions to put stuff on stage that maybe they shouldn't have. But I do want to spend my final note on talking about what Ubisoft really did right. And that was right by their developers and right by their company and right by their fans by acknowledging these people. They opened the show up with Mario+Rabids, Kingdom Crashing or something. Anyway, it's Rabbids plus Mario. And it's Mario, like the Mario dressed Rabbids are funny. I don't like the design of Rabbids personally, but I know I'm in the minority on that. A lot of people like the Rabbids, so they are the minions of Ubisoft. So there you go. But yeah, no, like I will say they brought on Miyamoto. And this is the first time that Miyamoto has shown up on a stage that wasn't Nintendo at E3. Like, Miyamoto was at E3. That was something we should actually probably be talking more about now that I think about it. Like, Miyamoto was at E3. That's the first time Miyamoto's been at E3 in years. I don't recall when was the last time Miyamoto or Nintendo, like, head honcho was at E3 since the Wii U got announced. I think that might have been the last time, like, Miyamoto was on stage at E3. Which tells you a lot about the impact that Miyamoto has. Miyamoto did something really cool, though, is because he got on there, he did, like, the PR stuff, but then he, the head of creative, or, like, the head producer of the new Rabbids plus Mario game, he acknowledged him. He pointed to him out in the crowd, and he talked about the conversation they had about this idea and this concept when he was pitching it to Miyamoto. And Miyamoto just said, hey, like, when you're coming up with these ideas, don't do anything that's ever been done before with Mario. Like, just don't do it. Like, do something new with Mario. Bring Mario to someplace new, with new characters, a new world for him to inhabit and explore and have fun in. That was his advice to this developer, and the developer, to his credit, and Ubisoft has reinforced this idea of an almost XCOM-like combat, XCOM/Fire Emblem-like combat with some feel of a little bit like Mario RPG-like exploration of the world. And it was very cool. A lot of people like Andy Cortez at Maximum Cortez will talk to you about that thick peach rabbit. Oh. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Andy Cortez over at Kind of Funny. I've known Andy for a couple of years now, and it's so good to see him killing it. I talked to him last night about it, and he's just an awesome dude. Anyway, burying that way deep in here so nobody picks up on that. Let's go ahead and top it off by just saying, hey, I mean, it was a good conference. They had a lot of breadth. Like, they had a lot of places they were going, whether it was racing, whether it was Olympic snow sports, I guess. Whether it was the crew, whether it was whatever it happened to have been, they really were able to hit beat by beat by beat. And even though it was hit and miss, depending on your personal intrigues or interests and choices on how you like games or how you like to play games, they hit everything they needed to. And they did it at a concise pace. But because of it's the fact that it's Ubisoft, it's a third-party support that for these big consoles that are really hamstrung them. Assassin's Creed Origins really should have just been at Ubisoft's conference. Having it on Microsoft's conference took the legs out from under it. Because people were talking about how good it looks on Microsoft's Xbox X. Just the Xbox. I'm just going to call it the Xbox because that's what all the acronyms go out to. So, X, B, O, X, Xbox One X. I'm just going to call it the Xbox from now on. And then the Xboss for the other, I guess. I don't know. This is not an official. I'm wearing like a tour, like this undershirt was so ratty that I literally tore off the sleeves and I just wear it like this. This tells you how unofficial and how laid back this kind of a presentation. This is going really long now that I think about it. I've been talking just about Ubisoft. I gotta talk about Sony. You know what? Executive decision. This is just the Ubisoft video. It's not like I edit these things anyway, so it's not even a problem. It's just gonna take time to upload. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been... So overall conference, it was good. It was a pretty solid conference, much better than it was last year. If we're going based off of like progress, I'd say Ubisoft has learned the most and done the best of improving their what E3 is now game. And they brought it. And I think they did a great job of bringing it. I just wish that there was more focus on what they were going to be able to do. But overall, keeping it tight to the games, doing a great job over there. Can't wait to see. Hope Vivendi doesn't come out from underneath and just eat them like Jaws does to... everybody in the Jaws movies, he just comes up and eats them, and that's Vivendi right now. They're coming for Ubisoft's lunch money, and hopefully we get another Ubisoft at next year's E3. But those are my final kind of reactionary feelings and thoughts on Ubisoft. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can go ahead and like this video if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can dislike it, I guess. I'd rather you didn't, just not do anything with it. Maybe you left earlier in the video and you're not even watching this, but you came back later because you're like, I want to see what else this is, and you're hearing me ramble now. But don't dislike it. I mean, you can if you want. I can't stop you. Agency is a fascinating mechanic in which our universe operates. But if you liked it, like it. If you want to watch more of our videos, especially with our upcoming YouTube initiative that's coming out, go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, stay complicated out there.